Hello everyone, welcome to another VWO webinar. My name is Utkarsh Rai and I take up growth marketing initiatives at VWO. I'll be moderating today's session. For this session, we are excited to host Mr. Peter Claridge, who is joining us from London. Peter has taken various roles and challenges throughout his journey at Unmetric and is currently leading the marketing team at Unmetric. For those who don't know about Unmetric, Unmetric is an AI-powered social media intelligence analytics platform which helps brands to improve their social presence. We welcome you, Peter. In this session, we are discussing two major things. First, to realize what you might be doing wrong with your social media strategy, and second, how you can fix all of that. For any questions during the session, you can reach out to me on Twitter with today's hashtag AskVWO. You can also use the GoToWebinars question widget to ask us anything. We'll take your questions at the end of the session. For your convenience, we are recording this session and the webinar resources will be shared with you guys over email after the session. So guys, let's begin. I would request Peter to take it over from here. Peter, over to you.
Thanks, Utkarsh. It's great to be here. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon if you're joining from Europe. And if you're like Utkarsh, joining us from Asia, good evening. Thank you for making the time to join us. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see my screen. If not, just head over to Twitter and use that hashtag you see there and let Utkarsh know that you're having some trouble. It's a surprisingly beautiful day here in London, and I'm really excited to be here with you. VWO is one of the biggest conversion optimization platforms around, so I'm honored that they reached out and asked me to do a webinar with all of you. As Utkarsh mentioned, I'm Peter Claridge and I'm the marketing director at Unmetric, which sounds far more of a grand title than it actually is. The marketing team is quite small, so I'm pitching in to send emails to our subscribers, scheduling tweets and annoying our website visitors with retargeting campaigns. Still, I've been with Unmetric for over 6 years now and seen it grow from the spare bedroom of a founder's house in Chennai to a company with a global footprint in Asia, Europe, and the US, with some of the world's largest and most loved brands as customers. My academic background is aerospace engineering, so Unmetric being a social analytics company, I get to combine my love of numbers with my love of marketing. I'm happiest when I have Excel sheets with hundreds of thousands of rows of data, although our development team begs me to run those SQL queries at the weekend on our slave database for fear of killing it. So it's from 6 years of this kind of analysis that I've put together this webinar for you today. Time is short, so let's dive straight in. Everyone on this webinar should agree with me that social media isn't just about creating content. As with any marketing channel, it's all about knowing your audience and communicating with them effectively. But that's not always as easy as it sounds. Today, I'm going to be showing you 13 things you could be doing wrong on social. Then I'm going to follow up with some data-driven ways that you can rectify them. So you know the type. They post non-stop, polluting your newsfeed with offers, promotions, contests, just about anything just to get you to notice them. Or maybe the approval process slows things down so much that your fans forget you even exist. Or I get why this happens because you have 1,001 other things to do, so you just publish content whenever it's ready to go out. The problem is that it's not at the time when your audience is the most active. All right, so maybe you do post at the right time, but have you ever followed one of those brands that just post about the same thing over and over and over again? I know I have, and they quickly got unfollowed. They're like a broken record shouting in an echo chamber. Hey, it's 2018. There are other places that your customers hang out besides Facebook. Have you even checked if your audience is more active on other social networks? Now, knowing your audience is more than just about demographics. It's about what they believe in, what they care about, and what they want to be associated with. How many brands are there scoring own goals because they have no idea what they want to be on social? It's just another tick in the box for them for a flawed marketing strategy. Okay, this one really annoys me because as a marketing head, I hate to see advertising dollars go down the drain, especially when everything is so measurable on social. Okay, here's a newsflash. Hashtags are great for discovery, but there are a few things more abused than the humble hashtag, especially on Instagram. So many brands think they can get extra engagement by adding just another hashtag. Stalking, it might be frowned upon, but stalking your competitors' every move has been socially acceptable since time began. Now, over the years, I've heard from brands that have told me they don't care about what the competition is doing, and they tend to end up like the next Kodak or Blockbuster. Now, my CEO, he used to work for Lolintas, and he told me that content and campaign inspiration back in the day came from a big black book of past campaigns, mood boards, and often a very large bottle of Johnny Walker. Today, though, inspiration can be on demand. There's no reason for creating boring content. Now, I've spoken to brands that know they're not getting any benefit from social, but they take a kind of mañana approach to it, thinking that it's something that they're going to fix tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. Other brands have a more pressing problem. They don't know what to change to be better on social. Okay, and since my team apparently loves BuzzFeed and GIFs, judging by the last few slides, they prepared a listicle format for me to tell you 5 ways how to fix your engagement. Okie dokie, right. Tell me this, how much content should you be publishing and when should you be publishing it? One thing we at Unmetric always recommend is to start with data. In this case, begin with when you have posted in the past, not just the day, but the time of day. Look at how much your audience is reacting to it. Use that data to dictate how often you should post. Now, that might sound like common sense, but it's just plain scary how many brands haven't started implementing this yet. To give you an idea of how you might do this, here's a real life example from Heinz Ketchup. Now, they may not have cracked how to get ketchup out of a bottle, but I think they've cracked their posting strategy. Let's take a look. I'm going to switch over to Unmetric's Analyze platform. But before I do that, I just want to say I'm not here to try and pitch Unmetric or anything like that. It's just that I happen to have access to it. So if you are looking for a social media analytics software, you can always head over to G2 Crowd and you can find a solution there. So if you're a small business, it tells you all of the apps and platforms and tools that small businesses use for their social analytics. Or if you're an enterprise company, they've also tell you which tools are there for that. Unmetric, we are a $1,000 a month platform because we have workflows, team management, customized reporting, AI, and loads more advanced features. But there are these other apps that do the basics for much, much less. Okay, so if we go back to Unmetric, last year on Facebook, Heinz Ketchup posted 74 times. So if I bring that up, just let that load. So they posted 74 times. That's less than 10 times a month, but to some people this might seem dangerously low, but it works for them because they're engaging much better than other food brands. So if we look at when they're posting, the first thing that jumps out at me here is that the brand posts most often between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. This is on Eastern time. What we can infer from this is that the brand has recognized that their audience is most active during this time period and capitalized on it by publishing most of their content then. Now, of course, finding this window of golden engagement and finding the right frequency takes some testing, and it's not something that can happen overnight. One of the ways I've seen other brands tackle this is to post similar content at different times of the day. Then looking at the engagement metrics, you can identify which time period generated the most engagement. You can do this quite easily in Excel, or you can find a tool that does it for you. Yeah, Unmetric's just one of many that can help you with that. Okay, so next one I want to show is, don't ask me why, but I was looking at a brand called Mr. Clean. Let me just go to that. I was doing some analysis around Super Bowl and the social media strategies that brands have used around the Super Bowl over the last few years, and Mr. Clean just happened to come up. During the analysis, I happened to notice they posted loads of content around the Super Bowl, but very little content for the rest of the year. So I wanted to see what it was that they were doing. So I had a look at their Facebook wall. I sorted it by number of video views. And I found that this video here had the most views. However, when I went over to YouTube, if I go over to YouTube, I found that the same video had over 18 million views. To me, this says two things about the brand. One, that videos are working better than images or regular posts on Facebook. And two, for video content, YouTube is still getting far more views than Facebook. So 3 things to remember when framing your posting strategy. First, look at the audience reaction, not just on one social network, but across social networks. Next, check if your audience is more active at a certain time. Finally, keep testing and recording the performance of your own content to get better engagement. The next point is related in many ways to testing because you can't be testing in a vacuum. And I'm sure Utkarsh would agree here that you need to know if what you're doing is excellent or just average. That's where comparing and benchmarking comes in. Benchmarking is something that brands have been doing forever, but before the internet, there was benchmarking around ad spend and frequency on mass media. In the 90s, it was about how much traffic you were getting to your website. Social media has given brands a whole new way to benchmark their efforts, so you truly know how your efforts are stacking up. Now, as I said earlier, Unmetric isn't the only platform that lets you benchmark your social media performance. So you can head over to G2 Crowd and you might find an app that works for you. Since I have access to Unmetric, I'm going to be using that. Oops. Now, as I said earlier, so let's see how social media benchmarking works in the real world. One of the brands that my team talks about all the time is Charmin. So if I go to Charmin here, now you've got to give this brand credit because it's a toilet paper brand talking about one's business, and it doesn't seem like that would be something that generates a lot of engagement, but apparently talking about your ablution activities does get engagement. However, this is one of my team's favorite brands. However, when I was looking at Charmin and seeing if they were worthy enough to be included in this report, I came across another toilet paper brand, one called Angel Soft. So it has half the size of Charmin, but I think they engage their audience far better with content that's a very strong emotional quotient. If I have a look at their brand posts, I found that now if a toilet paper brand can stand for something other than its primary purpose and generate a ton of engagement, I'm pretty sure any brand can find something that they stand for. So in this case, Angelsoft have taken the be soft, be strong approach, and they're talking about different ways in which you can be soft and then be strong. Earlier in 2017, they also took on single parents and celebrated Single Parents Day. And this generated for them a lot of engagement. So 24,000 reactions, 13,000 shares just by celebrating Single Parents Day. So it just goes to show that you don't have to be necessarily funny or witty or have a lot of sass like Wendy's to engage with people. If you can emotionally connect with a person as your brand, then you can be generating engagement on your social media. Now, I wonder if Charmin were to benchmark their performance, whether or not they would continue going down the toilet humor route. Now, if I look at the average engagement for Charmin, it's very, very low, whereas in the same time period, Angelsoft was beating them hands down with that. So I would say the big takeaway from benchmarking content is to get new ideas or even do course correction if you discover your particular message isn't working as well as others in your space. So let's move on to my third and favorite point, promotion and boosting content. I do like to spend money on advertising. Now, I'm going to take you back to Heinz in a second. We saw that the brand has figured out their optimum posting strategy and they got pretty good engagement. One thing we don't know yet is if their content is amazing because their audience loved it or if it's because there was some monetary play involved. At Unmetric, we have an AI that can identify if a certain post is promoted. So when brands put money behind a post, we can tell if it's promoted or not with about 97% accuracy. So if I just go back to Heinz here, and by the way, I do use Unmetric to track all of the B2B competitors that we have. We go to Heinz, click on brand posts. So we have 74 posts by Heinz. If I click on the promoted, this will tell me all of the posts from that 74 that our AI believes was promoted. So we can see 68 posts, about 90% of Heinz content in 2017 was promoted. So it's little wonder then that they got such high engagement. If you're ever in a meeting with your boss and she questions why you haven't got as much engagement as your competitor, you could show her this data from Unmetric or another app that offers this kind of data. And if your competitor boosted more posts than you did, then it might be a good opportunity to ask her for a bigger budget. So how do you use this promoted post detection in the real world apart from just asking for bigger budgets? One of our clients is a sports intelligence brand. They wanted to figure out which posts around players should be promoted and relay that information to the team sponsors. Now, of course, they didn't want to recommend posts that had already been promoted because that would make them not look so good. They needed so they needed our promoted post detection to sort the promoted post from the organic ones so that they are only sending the organic ones and recommended that they be promoted. Another one of our clients, it's an agency. They were told by their client that their paid social budget was going to be reduced. I imagine that's one of the worst things you can hear as an agency. The agency was worried about that without boosting the content, they weren't going to be getting as much engagement and they might lose the contract when it came up for renewal. What they did is they used Unmetric's promoted post detection feature and downloaded several years worth of historical data and then filtered those posts by organic and then sorted it all by engagement. They were able to use that information and use those insights to build a content strategy that got more organic engagement so that even though they weren't boosting as much, the engagement hadn't dropped too significantly either. So yes, of course, funding money into your content will improve reach and engagement, but to really get the right kind of engagement, you need to boost the right type of content. And that leads me to my next point. Now, one thing I think we can all agree on is your content can make or break your marketing goals. Yeah, if you think of the quirkiness of Skittles or the sass and savagery of Wendy's or how devoted P&G is to mums or how much Dove likes to celebrate real women or even just how off-putting Axe's Angels became, your brand's tone, stance and the emotion you invoke has a lot to do with how well it performs and how well people relate to it. I think Nike has done a very brave thing, but it clearly worked for them just recently. Now, this isn't even about analytics or data, it's how humans react and behave. The more you connect or relate to the message, the more likely you are to engage with it. So one of the biggest things about content in general is that it must evoke emotion. Now, Facebook recognized that people were not content with simply liking a post. They wanted to express a larger emotion. From this insight, the angry, happy, haha, and love reactions were born. So let me ask a question, and you can just answer it in your head. Which of these adorable posts would you most likely engage with? We have this one here from Petco, published on 25th of February, had 7,000 likes. And we have this one here, posted a week earlier, also from Petco, and it only had 4,000 likes. So we have this one or this one. So as a social media creator, I'd leverage data to see what types of images or what filters are bringing higher engagement using something like Amazon Recognition or even Google Vision, and figuring out what kind of imagery is generating higher engagement. One of our clients did this using data for their brand in Malaysia, and they figured that during a certain festival, the color green in their content generated higher engagement than content that didn't have it. Another brand wanted to figure out if their product should be in a nightclub setting or a beach setting or some other kind of setting. And again, they downloaded a lot of content from Unmetric, ran it through image recognition, and figured out what kind of setting they should put their product in to generate higher engagement. So if we looked at this from a more data-oriented perspective, what we have here is Unmetric Discover. If you want to find something on the internet, everybody goes to Google. When you want to find a brand post on a social network, where do you go? Google isn't of much help if you wanted to find an old Nike post, for example. To help marketers search through over 600 million pieces of branded content, Unmetric created the world's first social media engine for branded content. And this is free. There's a freemium version. Anyone can come to discover.unmetric.com and you can use this for free right away. It's almost like a BuzzSumo for branded content. We'll tell you what brands have published around certain keywords. So I think a topic everyone's going to be talking about fairly soon is Halloween. If I search for Halloween here, it's searching through our database right now for over 600 million pieces of content. It's found 113 posts. Now, this might not be too relevant to me right now, but I can filter and sort it. So if I wanted to sort by, one second, I'm going to do banking and finance, because I'd be wondering what banking and finance brands are going to be celebrating Halloween. Okay, I can see Western Union. I can also sort it by most engaging. And so now if I was a banking finance brand, I could go back the last few years and find out what other banking and finance brands have been doing around Halloween, what was working, what got engagement, and so on. Which is why a lot of our clients are using Discover all the time to do hundreds, thousands of different keyword searches. And as I said, there is a freemium version. So if you went to discover.unmetric.com, you can start using all of this for free. I think you're limited to about 10 posts, but if you try different keywords, you can do that and so on. Now, aside from searching for branded content in Discover, you can also use quantitative data-driven inspiration. For example, in a recent study I did on the banking sector, I found that tweets with 2 hashtags got far more retweets per tweet than those with 1 hashtag. You can do a similar kind of analysis for brands in your industry to see whether it's worth using emojis, more hashtags, different Instagram filters, and so on. And a lot of time I found that there are diminishing returns from using more hashtags or using emojis and that kind of thing. So looking at brands in your industry brings me to the 5th and final suggestion, which is competitor tracking. How do you find out if a competitor is putting out a new campaign? The old-fashioned way was to have some intern or junior marketer in the team keeping tabs on competitors' social profiles in an Excel sheet. And I know it kind of sounds crazy that you would do this, but just the other day I was speaking to our salesperson. She said that there was still a mid-sized brand that is still tracking everything manually on Excel. Now, a more sensible approach to keeping tabs on your competitors is to use an automated tool to do the job. Again, you could head over to a review site like G2 Crowd and check out a whole bunch of tools there that would help you. If you were to get real-time alerts on and information on what your competitors are doing, like Unmetric does, it could give you an opportunity to reshape your own efforts. For example, if anyone remembers that horrible United incident a couple of years ago, or was it 1 year ago, how many airlines tracked that incident and came up with a witty response to it? So this airline, Royal Jordanian, they saw an opportunity and they jumped on it. And I think other brands have done that. We've seen Wendy's do that quite often. They are always ragging on McDonald's and going off on them about their products. Another time you might want to know how big is the campaign that the brand seems to be running. Is it a cross-channel campaign? Is it involved multiple types of content, and is it being promoted? These little insights can give you key learnings on how to shape your future campaigns. So by holding up that mirror to what worked in the past, you can create a clearer picture on what to do in the future. You don't always need to roll up your sleeves and wade through row upon row of data in an Excel sheet. Sometimes just a visual update is enough. So to help marketers monitor competitors easily and be alerted when there's new campaigns, we've built a free mobile app for iOS and Android. Now this is completely free. It's not a freemium. It's not any paid upgrades. It's completely free. What you see here is you get to add any brands that you want to start tracking, and every time they post, you get it straight into a news feed. A lot of people use this because they want to keep tabs on what the competitors are doing, but if you follow a brand on Twitter or follow a brand on Facebook especially, you're not going to see all of their content. Whereas if you use an app like this Track, you'll get everything in one feed and you're not going to miss anything. In fact, one of our the account managers at our PR agency, he uses Track not to track competitors, but to track what the sports media is talking about, because he is really into his fantasy football and he wants to know about player news before anyone else and make his adjustments based on that. So he uses Track to make sure he doesn't miss any posts from sports media talking about players. Okie dokie. So if you did fall asleep or get distracted by Minesweeper, here's a quick recap on what you can do to fix your engagement. You start off with your posting strategy, understanding your audience better and looking at your own performance metrics. To improve these numbers, compare against your peers and benchmark against your industry. You'll learn whether your results are truly exceptional or just about average. Promoting content is great, but promoting the right content is more important. If none of this is really working, then look to give your content a breath of fresh air. Help your creative team find data-driven inspiration using something like Discover, and you'll be able to show them topics, holidays, and content that is working well for others. And finally, always stay up to date. Be constantly aware of what's happening in your competitive set to make your marketing more relevant and real time. You can download the Unmetric Track app for free and you'll be sorted on that front. That's all from me. I hope you had fun, learned a few things, and if nothing else, saw a few funny GIFs. If you do need any help with your social analytics or have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email is peter@unmetric.com. I do a lot of research and data analysis, which we put up on the Unmetric website. We look at everything from best time to post, things you can post on Instagram, hashtag analytics, social campaign analysis, all of that kind of thing. And we're using data from the last 6 years to tease out those insights. If you do have any questions, I can try and answer them for you. I put a caveat that Unmetric is an analytics tool, not a publishing tool. So I don't have too much advice about details of paid advertising campaigns and audience targeting and all of that. But on the analytics side, definitely can help you. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks a lot. So we do see a few questions coming, but maybe to give the audience a little more time in terms of thinking about what they need to ask you, maybe we can start with a question of my own, which
Sure.
is what would you recommend to companies which have a small marketing team and can't invest in social media analytics? What would be a good starting point for them to improve their social reach and see, what they can do to improve their metrics?
Yeah, this is a good question, and it's something that I've been thinking about as well as a smaller company. How do we improve our engagement? And I think the answer to that is you've got to be, I know it goes without saying, but you've got to be social, you've got to be real, you've got to be human. You've got to be showcasing the people at your company. People like to interact with other people. So whether it's you're talking about what your team has done that day, whether your team has gone on some big trek or some outing somewhere, talking about what the people in the company, your company, are doing, that generates a lot of engagement. Also talking about your customers and not just in general, but specifically if you can find individual customers that you can talk to and have them talk about how they're using your product and what their life is like, and that builds a way for your fans to relate back to your brand, and that works far better than just putting out content saying there's a sale on or happy Friday or something like that. So you've got to remember social media is about being social, and you've got to open up your company and team and your customers and show your real people, you're being very transparent, and this is who I am, and all of that. And I've seen, in fact, I can tell you the example. For UPS is a very large logistics company, and logistics sounds like one of the most boring industries I've ever seen, yet they have one of the most engaging pages on Facebook because they're always highlighting things that their staff has done. So they have a UPS Hero Stories feature. So if a UPS driver has rescued a dog or has come across somebody suffering from a heart attack or has helped someone who's broken down at the side of the road, UPS always posts about that story, and the engagement it gets is just phenomenal. And when you start reading the comments, people are like, "Oh, I'm always going to be using UPS. This is why UPS is so great. This is, what the kind of company I want to be doing business with." So it's that being more human. Don't be talking about, okay, these are the different package sizes that UPS offers. You could do some of that, but if you can make it more human, then you're going to be more engaging.
Yeah, I think Peter, that's a great example, connecting with human sentiments, kind of valuing it, and the humanity which everybody's kind of live into. We
Yeah,
kind of,
I think we
yeah,
saw that with the Angelsoft and Charmin content as well. Charmin, they go for that toilet humor, which is funny, but not necessarily relatable. I'm not going to be sharing toilet humor on my Facebook feed, but when Angelsoft were talking about single parents, that's something that it won't resonate with everybody, but it certainly resonates very strongly with a certain section of people. And if they feel like the brand is understanding them, connecting with them, and we saw that people are much more likely to share it, saying, wow, this brand is doing a really great thing, and recognizing the plight of single parents.
yeah, yeah. So another question is coming from Michael.
Hi,
Michael is
Michael.
asking, what are some free tools to evaluate your competitors' social activity? Any recommendations for e-commerce businesses?
Free tools, I would say go back to the G2 Crowd and have a look at that. I can't think of any free tools off the top of my head, but I know that there are some low cost tools. So, for example, we use SEMrush to track all of our social metrics, and I know that they've added some competitor intel from social as well. It's quite high level, some of the metrics there, but I do know that SEMrush offers that, and it's quite inexpensive. The problem with doing something that's free is that the amount of data that's being generated by all of these brands and all of these social networks is so huge that just storing the data itself is very costly. So that's why it's be tough to have a free tool. Or if it is free, it'll be quite limited in the amount of data that they can hold for you. So Unmetric has over 6 years worth of data. If it's a free or low cost tool, it might be the only maybe 30 days of data or 6 months of data that they hold historically for you. But that's just a function of cost.
Great. Another question is, we are getting it from Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Scott is asking how to help your leadership team know about the ROI of using social analytics tool, and how we can convince them in terms of investing in them.
Sure. So One of the things that we believe is ROFL at social media, and that's a separate webinar that we have done. If you're a company like McDonald's or Coca-Cola putting up a piece of content on your your Facebook page, you're not going to be able to say, yes, this led to X number of dollars of ROI. Similarly, in a similar way, putting up hoardings for your business is not going to be say yes, because of this hoarding here we increased our sales by this much. You just don't, when you're doing so much mass media advertising, you don't necessarily 50% is working, you just don't know which 50%. In terms of ROI, there's two ways of looking at it. One would be if you're outsourcing to an agency, your brand outsourcing to an agency, you can have oversight on what your agency is doing, and is your agency doing a good job? Maybe your agency is charging you, so much dollars, every month, but if they're not doing a good enough job, their engagement levels for your content is not as high as your competitors, then you're not getting value for money from your agency. So you're using social analytics for that. Another way could be, I'm just trying to think if there's any examples that I'm allowed to talk about. So I think one was Carnival Cruises. They had an unfortunate time last year because there were a lot of hurricanes in the Caribbean, and they knew that they couldn't really talk so much about their cruises in the Caribbean, but they didn't really know what they could talk about and still promote their product, their service. So they turned to Unmetric to see what others were doing that were being also affected by hurricanes, and they were able to use those insights to develop a new content strategy to continue talking about their cruises, but also in a way that was quite sensitive and generating engagement. So in that respect, it was a case of they didn't want to post nothing because they still wanted to have that higher share of voice, but they didn't know what to post. And using Unmetric, they figured out that strategy so they could continue having that share of voice.
Great, Peter. One question is coming from Vijay. Vijay is asking, how important is video content in social media space now? Have you seen any noticeable uptick in analytics?
Again, if it's a difficult one to answer. Video generally outperforms other content types in terms of engagement, but it really does depend on what your content is. One of the brands that I absolutely love on social media is called Innocent Drinks. They're a UK-based smoothie and fruit juice brand, and they don't necessarily go in for videos and that kind of stuff. They can even post plain text updates, and the engagement that they get is just phenomenal, because it resonates so well with the fans. They're often very timely, they're often quite funny, it ties back to the brand. They do a fantastic job, and they don't use video. They can just post a plain text, and every other social media guru would say don't post plain text update because it doesn't engage, but Innocent Drinks is proving the opposite. I think Denny's is another good example where the content is so good, it doesn't need to be video to engage. Wendy's is another example where they just trolled McDonald's when McDonald's put out that tweet saying insert Black Friday content here, and Wendy's just replied with, when your tweets are as broken as your ice cream machine. And that tweet went just crazy viral, and they got a huge number of followers, and people were like, oh yeah, I'm only going to eat at Wendy's from now on. So yeah, you can do video, and video generally will perform better, but creating video is difficult, and unless you've got the basics right, unless you've got that emotional connection, like the new Nike advert, and unless you've got something that you want to say and people want to share it, then it's still going to fall flat. And if you're spending so much money creating that video, do you want to do it and not have anyone engage with it, or do you want to spend less time coming up something fairly funny, or something that resonates better. I think Glossier, it's a direct-to-consumer beauty brand, and again, I think they've cracked the social media code, as it were, because they put out some phenomenal content and they really understand their audience and users. It doesn't have to be video.
Yeah, also discussing a little bit about our recent experiment with VWO. We tried basically posting a video content where we kind of basically a video of ourselves talking about a content piece which we are planning to promote on social media. So we basically what we were trying to experiment was basically put a face on any of our team members' face talking about the content piece, creating a 30-second short video of that and posting it online to see if that kind of replaces the entire landing page experience of them telling about content, what's going to come and who should basically follow for that content piece. And we saw that there is a large amount of uptick in terms of promoting that content piece. That 30-second video does a far better job than writing scores of words and long landing pages and writing blogs around it in terms of telling what the content piece holds. So that's one experiment we recently did with our social media
Yeah,
engagement, and we saw that those content pieces work a little better than what we traditionally used to share.
yeah,
So I
and
would
I guess
definitely
again that's because there's a human there, right?
yeah, we're putting a face into our content pieces.
Yeah,
So with that, I think we have done with the questions part. I don't see any more questions coming in. So with that, Peter, thanks a lot for taking out the time to come here and share your experience with us. Thanks
no
to all the
problem at all.
attendees for attending this session. We'll come back again soon, very soon, with another pressing subject and insight from the world of conversion optimization. Till then, keep optimizing. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.